Hi, this is Michael Wilson again, and for A Course in Miracles in Southeast Portland. ACIM SEPDX on Facebook. And today I want to talk about a tarot card from the Major Arcana, which illustrates a particular principle. This card is called the Hermit. And and as you can see, he's standing in the snow, and he's holding his staff in his left hand, and he has a lantern in his right. He's holding it aloft. There's a double triangle in the lantern shining brightly. Same color as the staff. And he's wearing this gray robe, color of the initiate. And just by chance, although I was certainly aware of it when I took the photograph, there's a lot of light around his head. That's something additional to the card. Anyway, he's at the top of a very high mountain. Although if he looks around at that level, all he can see is high mountains. And at the top of every mountain in this story, there's one of these guys. And so each mountain represents a particular spiritual path that is shared by a group of people. And this elder is standing up at the top of the mountain, holding that lamp of light to show others the way to the top. And in A Course in Miracles, there's a point where we decide whether we're going to follow the ego or the Holy Spirit. And that point has been called the decision maker. It's also the soul. So this person has been working for a long time, following his spiritual path. And he's been refining himself more and more. You might ask, well, why does he need to do that? The Course says that we're all sons of God, or to be a little nicer, maybe sons and daughters of God. But the point is, they were all, an identical self. But I think sons and daughters is good because, we're so used to gender that we have we've given certain traits to types of behavior that we consider to be male or female. And so it's true that each of us is a unique combination of those traits. And one might perceive that one trait might predominate in an individual over the other. But that's just life on earth, right? Life in duality, life as a separate being. And that's the hard thing about taking this road, because where we once had complete unity and no problems at all, we chose to separate from that complete perfect unity and imagine a world where everyone and everything is a separate being. And that was a really big shock to our experience, to feel all alone like that. And as you know, there have been a lot of stories about that that we've created down through the ages to help us understand this predicament that we find ourselves in. Because in this world of separation, lack and scarcity are a pretty dominant experience. So it's insulting to the Son of God. I mean, really deeply insulting to take something so grand and turn it into littleness. And because of that insult, we, over the course of many years, we create complexes within ourselves that color how we perceive the world around us. And that's how it comes out to be that each one of us has a separate personality because of those different, how we've processed those experiences. And so this process here in the 9th card of the Tarot is a process of refinement, a process of letting go of sort of like coming to understand those complexes, those senses of limitation in our emotional body, in our mind. That filter our experience here. And give it the complexity that we have. And so then we begin this process through whatever spiritual path we're on, this process of refinement, trying to push away the cobwebs of our limiting thoughts, self-criticisms, all sorts of things like that that keep us small. And so the Star of David in here, you could simply say that's a symbol of the lamp of knowledge, a symbol of knowledge. And in the Course, knowledge is a synonym for heaven. Because we completely know ourselves, who we really are. And we're not limited at all. All the attributes of God that we ascribe to God are ours. The only difference being that God created us. We did not create ourselves. It's this self here on earth, this self in the world that we created. And we're in the process of refining that self, bringing it closer, more and more into harmony with the divine will. So we choose, we come to realize what's going on in the world. And we decide to choose for the God of unity rather than the God of separation, the ego. We find a different teacher. The Course calls that teacher the Holy Spirit or Jesus. And we start to follow that guidance from within ourselves, learning to hear the voice of God. And then to live our lives in accordance with the guidance that we're receiving. The Course teaches us that at that point, above the mind, the chart where it's in the middle of the chart, where there's a section called mind, and it's divided between the ego and the Holy Spirit. The ego is like the experience of the world as a prison, and over here, as we come up from that low point, we begin to experience the world as a classroom. And at the point at the top where we make the decision is a gap. And then above that is knowledge, heaven. And that tiny gap represents God taking the last step. Because this process of refinement that's described by Virgo, the Hermit, is us doing everything we can to improve ourselves. As we understand ourselves. And we have to reach a point in our lives where we give everything over. We realize that God created us perfect. And that everything that we've tried to do is, even the refinement, is not the pure and perfect self that God created. It's still a thin veil over that great self, the Christ in you. So there's a point that you reach where things are going pretty good, and you realize that you might as well just go all the way and give up all self-criticism, all judgment. And let God live through you. Your real self. So that's what this card represents and how it's understood through A Course in Miracles. We've talked about that in one of our discussions recently, and I wanted to present that card and what it really means. thank you for listening and watching. And I hope that helps you to understand A Course in Miracles a bit better.